bedtime is what like really helps.
All about that early bedtime.
Yeah. It's like mandatory.
It's not uncommon for me to like get into bed at like 8 p.m. Like Brady goes to sleep at 7, and so I got an hour. I try to knock out as many like run logs as possible, just go through there, and then it's like 8 o'clock, time to be in bed. You don't have to go to sleep, Drew, just like get in bed.
Yeah.
That routine though, it really works. We always kind of like talk to each other and joke a little bit about how lame we are because we go to bed so early. Like friends want to get together at 7 o'clock at night, and we're just like, no, that just like doesn't work for us during the week. Like
what is it? New Year's Eve? Are you kidding me? I'm not staying up past 9.
Yeah.
Can't do that on a school night.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, we laugh in our house because we call it old people hours. So back before COVID, if you went out at 7 o'clock in Dallas and tried to get into a restaurant, you couldn't because there's an hour wait. And so because I go to bed, like you said, at 7:30, 8 o'clock, we're eating at like 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. We get all the specials and all that.
Happy hour, baby.
Exactly. And then 8 o'clock, I'm in bed and it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron, you make a really good point. If past 8 o'clock is the only free time that you have, because that's when kids go to bed, I would say take that time for yourselves. Really, really important to have those hours. Yeah, and Drew, if you're getting them in at 4 in the morning, before the sun is even up, that's pretty like epic.
Hey, sometimes you don't get to choose when you get your free time. You just take it when you can take it. Sometimes it's at 4 a.m. Sometimes it's always at 4 a.m. for me, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I try to always tell athletes, like, when that free time becomes available, don't try to fill it up with stuff necessarily. Try to just take space for you, use it as a time to, connect with your partner, something like that, rather than to like have to put an activity into that space. Just so you have a little time to reset. Because something that like, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about this on the call today, but something, with parents and people who have really busy jobs, it's like they often just go from one thing to the next, and then they get to Friday and they're completely burned out. And then they struggle, on their weekend long runs and all of that. And I think that sometimes just taking some space, even if it's just 20 or 30 minutes, to just either meditate or have a conversation with their partner, or just to, I don't know, just to like, I call it just like unproductive rest. I think that's just really, really important, because people often don't realize that every little activity they put into every little free space they have is actually taxing them. And by the end of the week, their stress bucket fills up or overflows, or they just don't have any more bandwidth. They have like nothing left to give. And I think like anybody who's been pushing in a career or job or as a parent, like kind of knows what it feels like to feel like they're tapped out. So it's good to try to avoid those situations. What do you think, Zoe?
Oh, I'm the worst at this. I'm like, I've got 7 spare minutes. I should try to do a core exercise and then answer a bunch of emails while I'm planking or something.
Or you're like, I've got 10 minutes. I'm going to write an article. Like, no, just like eat your lunch, not at your desk.
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to make it, I want the things I do to be intentional. And when I work, I want it to be because I chose to do that, because I want to do it, rather than like have it be a compulsion out of like coming from a negative place of like trying to shore up my self-worth, being like, I'm not enough, might as well work more than anyone to make sure that, like, I don't think that's very good.
No.
So I'm really trying to make sure that when I do work, like when I am checking logs, when I am writing, it's because like I'm ready to show up for people, or I'm ready to express something important, rather than like trying to feel better about myself.
Yeah. And
it's hard.
It is. And I think like if whoever's listening out there, and we're pretty amazed at the amount of people who listen to these calls, either live or afterwards. And that's, nice feedback for us. But everything we say, take it with, the caveat that, we're humans, don't put us on
Flawed
pedestals. When I'm aware of these things, it doesn't mean that I'm always doing it
I
correctly.
think if they could see my laundry situation, I would be not on a pedestal. Not implying that I am on a pedestal, but if they could see the laundry situation, would certainly not be.
There's a reason they get this view of the apartment.
Yes.
Not the other way. And definitely not the bedroom.
You don't even know if we're wearing pants at the moment. We could be completely pantsless.
I thought about wearing PJs today, but I'm already ready to go running.
He's wearing basketball shorts.
It's one of those like mid-temperature days where the long shorts.
You want just like a little bit of extra thigh coverage. Those 2 inches of extra thigh coverage make all the difference.
Yesterday was a short shorts and t-shirt day.
My favorite is short shorts and tall socks.
That's a good look.
Yeah.
Definitely style points on that.
Lots of thigh, no
I'm a
ankle.
big fan of the tall socks. I question anybody who wears
Well, I'm
short
actually more of a
socks.
quarter crew kind of gal.
Quarter crew.
Yeah.
You gotta go long.
I feel like they make my calves look weird. I feel like they make me look like I don't know. It makes me feel like when I was a kid and I would accidentally, I just couldn't figure out how the pants sock interface, and I would always show up to middle school with my pants tucked into my socks, and then I would get teased. It's a whole thing.
You know what? I say embrace the long sock.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what anybody thinks.
Short shorts, long socks.
Yeah. Got to protect those ankles.
Got to protect.
Keep them warm.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Keep the dirt out. Well, I guess we could start with some questions.
Ugh.
Hope everybody's had a good week.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's been a long one, and
It's been a week
scrambling this morning, but
wasn't the scrambliest. You're leaving for Wyoming, so it was actually a bit scramblier.
Yeah. For me, I was scrambling, but
Bowie and I have been having a great
for you,
morning.
you were chill. You were chill. And Bowie's got her bone, so hopefully no dog distractions. Well, awesome. Yeah, we've got Kristen her parents are visiting, so she's out on a hike or something.
That's awesome.
But we've got 4 coaches, 4 perspectives for some of these questions, which is always exciting.
Yeah.
And something that we're trying to do more of. Also, I think we're probably trying to push away from the long format conversation on Mondays, because we've pretty much exhausted in the last 8 to 10 months with over 30 talks, all of the relevant topics I think that we can do. So we're probably going to cut back to about 1 a month and try to have some more conversations that involve team members, coaches on Mondays as well, just to mix things up. We'd like to hear from you guys, particularly. The chat box is really nice, but I want to empower you guys to, I don't know how we could do it, but to actually speak. And because I think everybody here has really important perspectives that can lend to the conversation and continue to kind of, I don't know, fill the community at large up with great ideas and different ways of thinking about all this stuff. So that's the direction we want to take things. Yeah. And no weird scrunchy faces on that, Zoe. You like doing hour-long talks, but also with your workload, that's been a little challenging lately. So, all right, let's get into the questions. And these are some good ones this week.
Yeah.
All right. What is the best timing for foam rolling and or using a Theragun? Before versus after runs? Can you overdo it on these recovery activities? Drew, you want to answer this one first?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to speak from my experience here. I'm not a physical therapist, not a doctor. I'm just a runner, and I have used a foam roller. Obviously, all of us should. And I own a Hypervolt, so a percussion massage device. In my personal experience, it's been best for me to use my foam roller and my Theragun, or I say Theragun just because it's on the question, but my Hypervolt post run. I feel like I get a more productive massage. I feel like I'm loosened up. I can go deeper. I can go maybe a little longer without experiencing some negative side effects. foam rolling, I've never been able to like foam roll too much. Like eventually, like your relationship with your foam roller like needs to be a positive one and not a negative one, like they all are at one point or another. But foam rolling all the time for nearly as long as you want is been okay with me all the time. With the percussion massage device, whatever brand you've got, you might be careful when you use those, or if you haven't used one before, you're interested. They're great tools. They do wonderful work on your body, but it's really, really easy to overdo it if you're not used to something like that. Think like if you're going to go get a sports massage, or you're going to go get like a deep tissue massage because you're stressed out, there are time limits for that stuff. Not because like your therapist is going to get tired per se. They could massage you for 6 hours straight if they needed to, but there are a lot of negative side effects from just getting beat down for so long. So really, really important just to go short intervals. When I first started, I think I spent just like maybe 3 or 4 minutes on just my calves. And the next day I felt like I'd run like Usain Bolt pace 100-meter dash in like spikes for the first time in like 20 years. It was really bad. Like couldn't walk. I was about to cramp. So maybe just like 60 seconds or 120 seconds at a time to start, and then maybe slowly build up as your body is able to adapt to that kind of thing.
Yeah, nice. Kylie, I know you had some thoughts on this too.
Yeah, mine probably aren't that much different than Drew's, but yeah, I'm usually an advocate for post run foam rolling and the Theragun. I have personally been trying to get in the habit of doing the foam rolling actually for my IT band stuff, and I think if it's something that you are interested in getting into, kind of setting up a pattern for yourself, like, yeah, every day I'm going to do like a minute or something, you know, and I would say that you definitely can overdo it with both tools, the foam rolling and the Theragun. So, I mean, my max on the foam roller is about 5 minutes. But with the Theragun, I agree with Drew. Definitely do not want to use one of those for a super long period of time. I've definitely had my own fair share of overusing them and being super sore as well. So just, I would honestly just do like 30 seconds on each area, and then mix it up from there and just see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, other than that, don't have too many like added details or anything, but would say it's a really good habit to kind of get into with the foam rolling. Oh, and on that note, if you do have IT band stuff, don't foam roll directly on the IT band. So
yeah, I think a couple of resources that are really great. The brand Add-A-Day has, like, I don't ever use these things as part of my, well, I've foam rolled to warm up before when I've had IT band issues, but I've never like used the massage gun for that purpose. But there is a way you can do that, and the company Add-A-Day has some really great tutorials on how to do that if that's something you're interested in, on their website and their app and on their YouTube channel, but also there's all of YouTube. So if you're wanting to just get a little bit more precise with it, you know, giving it a quick YouTube kind of tutorial search is probably a good idea to make sure that you're doing these things correctly and getting the most out of your time. And I would iterate what these guys are saying. It's kind of hard to overdo it with the foam roller, but I would say it's a lot more effective to do like 5 minutes a day rather than just 20 minutes a week all at the same time. You know, in all things, consistency is the best to go for. You know, you don't want to just be like, oh no, I'm sore, better like react and do like 40 minutes on the foam roller. The best injury course is prevention rather than reaction. So just, you know, keep consistent with things and find a routine that works for you, and don't assume that you're just going to out of nowhere be able to suddenly pick up like a totally new fancy complicated routine.
Yeah, I actually posted a tutorial that Emily from Little Summits Strength Training, she is our strength training partner, that she created, and it's on the Facebook page. And I definitely recommend that you guys check that out. There is actually some stuff in there that I hadn't even considered, some techniques on rolling out the ITs and for kind of getting your abductors and things like that, that I didn't know about. And I thought that video was really well done. I would urge you guys to look at that if you've got any questions about foam rolling. Yeah, I mean, I think that you can also use the foam roller very successfully as part of like a morning mobility routine to just get loosened up initially before you do your warm up, and then before you go out and run. That's something that I do. I usually do about 5 minutes or so, especially focusing on my Achilles and my calves, and my hamstrings, which tend to be tight areas for me. I'm not looking to stretch those areas or anything like that as much as I'm looking to just kind of loosen them up a little bit, keep within the range of motion generally, but to kind of prepare myself for a dynamic warm up that I usually do like 3 or 4 days a week before my runs, before I go out there. So that's something that you guys can also do, particularly if you're somebody with tight calves and things like that. If you've got tight calves and you're going to go out and run on tight calves, you're going to finish the run with tighter calves. So I would really recommend that you spend some time working within, your range of motion, foam rolling, kind of loosening up that fascia. It can definitely help.
Yeah.
Cool. I think this is one of my most favorite questions so far that an athlete has asked us to talk about.
I like it because it has a smiley emoji in it.
At the end.
I write like almost no sentences throughout the course of a day that don't have a smiley face in them.
This is a long one. All right. I was wondering if you could talk about what an athlete's day should look like in an ideal world. I know it can range widely, but I feel like I may be in the same boat as a lot of others. Desk job, sitting a lot throughout the day, and then running. I'm not an expert, but I feel like the dichotomy of those don't help each other too much. Should we take a break every hour? Do some mobility work every so often? Get out and walk on our lunch breaks. I do some of these things right now, but I never know if I'm doing enough.
Or maybe even too much.
Or too much.
Yeah.
Drew, you I think you really wanted to talk about this, and I think you've got a great perspective.
Yeah, I did. And so I also like this question a lot. It's a question that everyone kind of asks themselves. It kind of goes in that line with like, am I doing this right? Which is something that we'll ask ourselves about literally every topic moving forward. And that's okay. The person who wrote this question is absolutely right that our days vary depending upon our jobs and our personal lives. Like for me, for example, I've got a kid and I've got a full-time job and I coach and I run, and I just feel like I've got a lot on my plate, not too dissimilar to like Zoe, who's literally got like 16 jobs. But trying to find a way to prioritize everything, like find out what is most important for you and literally like write it down on a list, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 until you're at 16, like Zoe, and just and kind of plan your day accordingly. With me, as like with running is a priority of mine. I like to run in the morning because I feel like there are a lot of physiological benefits to that. I really like being able to, I guess, set myself up for success throughout the day. I know some people prefer running in the afternoon because they've had a hard day's work and that's their time to like release those negative energies and negative thoughts, and like almost like a therapy session. But trying to like run in the morning, and then I have all day to hydrate and eat and not have to worry about what I'm doing and how it's going to affect afternoon runs. The person that wrote the question also talked about like mobility during sitting at a desk all day, and that's me too. Like I literally sit at a desk and order shoes and write schedules and do all kinds of stuff all day, and it sucks. So one thing I do, just a tip for anyone that has to sit at a desk throughout the day, is I purposely drink like a lot of water. Like I'll drink like 120 ounces a day from like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Just so I force myself to get up and refill my cup. I force myself to get up and go use the bathroom. And so by the time the day is done, I've like literally walked everywhere, thousands of steps just surrounding like the bathroom alone. So it is good to get up, shake your legs, move around. If you're having to sit at your desk from like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and you never get up, you have lunch at your desk, like all of us seem to be doing these days, and then you don't move, like you're kind of, I think, and I think that maybe someone else can like expand on this a little bit, but sitting there for so long is detrimental to your body. Like you're getting tight, and then you're going to get up and go, and everything's just not going to feel right. It's like, I don't know, your body's a machine. You got to keep it lubricated. You got to keep it moving, and just kind of, I don't know. I don't know if any of this makes sense. I'm kind of rambling at this point, but but trying to find out what works best for you as it pertains to your work day, and just keep moving, I guess.
Yeah, great. That was great, Drew. And I think, my biggest takeaways from what you said there is to prioritize your day, and to also consider moving around a lot. I know that athletes who are sitting often have limited mobility and mobility issues as a result of that. And so one thing that I recommend to athletes, and something that I do every day myself, is I oscillate between sitting at the desk and standing at the desk. So, I don't have a desk. I work at the kitchen counter, but I will stack 4 or 5 cookbooks underneath my laptop, so it's propped up higher, and then I'll stand at it to do coaching, and I'll do an hour or so like that, and a few hours sitting. And it keeps, I feel like it keeps me getting tight in my hips, which is an issue. I'll also sometimes switch and work, from the couch, so I can get my legs like out, especially if I've done a workout or a long run. And if you're somebody who works from home, you've got a variety of different places where you can do your work. And I recommend switching it up. I also recommend, if you can, every 50 to 55 minutes, taking 5 to 10 minutes for a walk. Maybe you're going to just take your dog out really quick, or you're going to go refill your water. Just getting some like clarity to your mind, getting away from the work for a little bit instead of continually grinding. And then also, moving your body. It really makes a big difference. That's something that I've noticed that Zoe tries to do as she's really married to her desk. She takes more walks during the day, which is really vital.
One of the nice things about having a dog is it's like setting that timer where I'm like, all right. But also I'll say, like, for me, I don't like to be beholden to like a specific schedule for getting out and doing the walks. I like to really pay attention to how my attention and how my focus is functioning. For instance, if I'm writing or producing a podcast and I'm really flowing, I'm not going to get up. Like, I'll just sit at my desk for 3 hours and I won't move, and that works for me. However, if I notice, like, if I'm writing or coaching or producing and I feel like my attention, like I'm having a really hard time getting into that deep focus, if I notice that my mind is drifting, instead of saying like, okay, focus, like work harder, I'll say, let's take a break. And then I'll take 10, 15 minutes to walk around the block with Bowie, listen to a podcast, like just like change clothes. Like I'll just do something to like honor the fact that you can't just like force yourself to pay better attention. You need to learn how your specific attention works and work with that.
There was a really good study done on the productivity of factory workers, and it was mentioned in Peak Performance, book by Steve Magnus, where they kind of looked at the routines that these workers had over a series of months and years, and then put in an intervention. So they changed their routine, and they switched their routine to working 50 minutes followed by a 7-minute break, and then starting again with work for 50 minutes at the top of every hour. And then they tried a series of other interventions as well to see, what the productivity level of these individuals was, and like burnout factors and things like that might lead to less productivity in the workplace. And they found that the schedule of working 50 minutes followed by 5 to 7 minutes break, followed by another bout of 50 minutes of work, was the most sustainable. And, I don't know, how valid that study was. But but it's a pretty good schedule to at least start out with. If you're one of those people like me who really struggles to work, beyond 1 hour, starts to kind of like lose mental focus. Like I'm not great on the computer and stuff like that. So it helps me to really like step away. And for me, being on a schedule is what will allow that, because I'll just push through even if I'm tired, if I'm not on that schedule.
But like in terms of, I think, finding the ideal workflow for an athlete, I think the biggest growth for me has been from not trying to have an idealized schedule, because I used to just stress myself out so much trying to optimize my schedule and like have the perfect day, which is just hard when you're working and also trying to compete at an elite level. And being able to like release myself from that burden and say like, hey, like whatever your day looks like, just make it work for you. Don't be worried about like what other people are doing. People who can take naps during the day and whatever, that's great for them, but you're not them, and that's okay. So instead of trying to find this like the perfect schedule for like in an idealized world, like to me that information isn't that important, because I do not live in that world and I don't want to live in that world. Like I don't want to take naps during the day. Like if you gave me an hour to nap, I just wouldn't. I would just rather be working with my people. And so I feel that just releasing yourself from the pressure of trying to have the perfect schedule, or maybe giving yourself self-limiting narratives because you like aren't, don't have like, you don't live at the Olympic training facility or whatever. Like you can still kick butt in all the things that you do with a suboptimal schedule. That does not mean that you should always be prioritizing mental health. You should always be making sure things feel good for you and you're taking care of yourself. But, I think that trying to be perfect and trying to optimize is oftentimes a source of great stress, rather than like really provoking those adaptations.
And I would like to offer the viewpoint that it sounds like you have optimized what you do through awareness of your strengths and weaknesses and how your day aligns best for you.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
so
but like
building that awareness is really what it's all about. If you're the kind of person who works well in 8 hours straight, that's amazing, and you should not change what feels right to you. Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm hearing from you, Zoe. It's not. I
just think that it's silly to. I don't think there is a perfect. I think that everyone should embrace movement and like definitely keep in mind their athletic selves throughout the day. But I think that a lot of times striving for that perfection is often what trips people up, rather than just embracing the fact that like life is hard, life is weird, like. My dog peed on my foot during a Zoom meeting yesterday. Like that's my perfect schedule. Like it's fine. Just don't drive yourself crazy trying to like, make things perfect.
I would agree. And I think with the through the lens of also making sure that you're taking care of yourself, because we all know what happens on the other side of that, where everything is going fine and you're pushing through, but then a lot of things are happening that you're maybe not aware of, and then a big breakdown occurs. And so, avoiding those moments, I think is pretty crucial, at least for me. I prefer never to break down and prefer to take a nap if I need to in order to avoid that. Kylie, I mean, you're a small business owner. You're working upwards of probably 8 or 10 hours a lot of days. I would love to just hear your perspective on this too.
I'm like a very poor example of this. I'm with Zoe.
You should just hear us when we get together and like run or go to the dog park.
I'm working on this myself, but I actually would agree with you, TJ, on building that awareness first. And I think that everyone's going to be different, but especially it makes me think of when I'm working with people on nutrition, where if they don't think about it at all, they will just potentially not eat. So having awareness and trying to maybe, get a little bit of structure, but not be overly structured is something that I try to work with people on, at least with their eating. And then personally, I know that if I like don't go for my run in the morning, it's not always like something later that's as enjoyable. So I'm like trying to build that into my schedule and gaining awareness around what works for you, I think is really important. But at the same time, I think if you say, oh, I'll just go by feel, like with something like fueling, it's not always the best strategy, I would say.
Yeah,
totally.
I completely agree. And I know that, and I'm sure Drew's experienced this with athletes and you as well, Zoe, Kylie, that athletes who forget to eat during a busy day, who say, I didn't have time to eat today, and all of these things, I think that there's no excuse for that. You've got to eat no matter what. And even if this is a little bit of a digression on the actual conversation, when we're prioritizing our day, I prioritize, here's what Drew says. I prioritize being a husband. I prioritize being a father, then a runner, a coach. And all of those things require fuel. All of those things require that you nourish your body, drinking plenty of water throughout the day, eating really well. A lot of people have really demanding jobs where it gets really hard to eat, or when they're stressed, they have a natural reaction, which is a suppression of appetite. And as an athlete, you don't get a lot of leeway there, because the pitfalls of not eating, of skipping those meals, of not nourishing your body, they stack up against you, and then you start to really, really feel bad. And then your risk for injury and things like that go up. So for anybody who's listening to this conversation, eating is important. If you have to eat at your desk, like Zoe does, eat at your desk. If you can't take a time away to compartmentalize eating and as a break from the day, that's okay. It's not a big deal. If you're eating a granola bar or something, in between seeing patients at, the hospital that you're working at, that's okay too. Like, you're just getting the food in that you need in order to set yourself up for that run later, or to help you, recover from a run you did before, or to prepare for a run the next day. Don't let those things slip. I can only tell you, like, hey, don't let those things slip in the training logs. But you're the one that has to make that happen and set yourself up for success. And I know for a lot of busy people, it's really helpful to, cook one meal and eat that meal 2 or 3 times. So do a little bit of meal prep ahead of busy days, so you've got that food in the refrigerator, or you can bring that lunch with you to work, etc. And I'm sure Kylie has many more tips than just that one. But
her Instagram is just full of like really amazing practical tips for how to eat well throughout the day. Such a good resource. I can't believe it's free.
Kylie, you're amazing. Yeah, great job providing the resources to the people. I know that they really help. And I just shared something yesterday on the Microcosm account about how to eat 200 to 300 calories an hour. And I thought that was a great post. You guys should check that out. All right, should we do another? This is more of a training related question. Let's try to knock this off in 10 minutes or less.
Yeah. And then there's a question in the chat, which is a pretty big one, but maybe we can like save that one for another day.
What is it?
How to eat in life, which is a big one.
Okay, let's try. Well,
we're gonna have to put it.
Let's dig into that one next week. Yeah, Zoe, make sure you put that in somewhere. Yeah, put that right there. Great. Awesome.
Boom.
All right, so our next question. What do you mean by training block? How long do they last? What are the elements of them? Great question. I can start, Zoe, or do you want to?
I would say it's a discrete period of time, bookended by down weeks, that typically there's like a unified purpose to the unit of time. I would say it's like usually 4 to 6-ish weeks. Maybe it's like, there could just be like a generic training block where maybe there's a mix of stresses. There could be an aerobic training block, which is purely focused on aerobic training. But basically it's just like a unit of training time, longer than a week, shorter than a year.
Yeah, or I mean, a year, I guess you could contextualize
I would say
a year
like that's a training cycle.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, training blocks. man, so different for each athlete, but generally if you're racing, if you've got a big race on the schedule, you're going to have a training block before that race. Could be 16 weeks long, could be 12, could be 8, usually not shorter than 8. And ideally the purpose
of a training
that
block, you could do a 4-week aerobic build, and that would be a training block.
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty broad term, but it just means like a certain amount of time in your training that has a purpose.
A focus purpose.
A focus, yeah.
Whether that's to build aerobic base, whether it's to prepare
speed.
Yeah, to prepare for a race, to build speed, to build do targeted workouts for a specific energy system. Those would all be incorporated in a specific block of training. Yeah. Cool. I didn't know if the other coaches wanted to kind of expand on that at all, but I feel like it's better to maybe keep it general because it really depends on the individual athlete.
Yeah, it really depends. And it's just kind of a fancy way of saying like part of your training.
We're focusing on this for this amount of time.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool. All right. We might make it through all these today. Might.
Negative splitting the questions.
Okay. What is this one? Ideas on how to most fully experience the microcosm opportunity. Oh, wow. This is a heady question. It would be fun to hear from the coaches and maybe some longtime athletes on this one. So if you're a longtime athlete, which a lot of you guys are, I would love to hear some of you guys on this. Just, I don't know, maybe make a remark in the chat box and then I can kind of ask you to speak on this, but
you can even raise your hand and then we can call on you.
How do you do that? Is there a hand raising option?
Yeah, there is.
Oh man.
I can't remember how to do it. Reactions?
I don't know.
Yeah, if you go to reactions, raise hand.
Yeah.
You can indicate to us that you would like to speak. Because I know that sometimes it's weird on Zoom when like 4 people, when you finally get the courage up to speak and then someone else speaks at the exact same time. Tom Ralph is partying. That's his reaction. I love that.
I'll start with my answer on this one. I think the best way to fully experience the microcosm opportunity is to not only engage in your training, in your individual training, and by that I mean very specifically, do your workout, respond in the training log in a appropriate amount of time, which to me is within 10 or 20 minutes after your workout. And then, engage in the process of taking whatever your coach tells you to do, whether it's feedback, ask a question, engage in that, try to incorporate any suggestions. And then the other piece to that for me is, trying to become a more knowledgeable athlete. So come to the Zoom calls or listen to them, try to gain more knowledge so that you can become more independent in the training process. For me as an athlete, that's what I constantly engage in with my coach. I'm always trying to learn and improve. Oh no.
Bowie's learned to open doors. It's a problem. She'll just like headbutt doors until they open now. So that's been exciting.
Zoe, could you answer this?
Yes. I think, one of the great things about so you can overdo it on training, but it's pretty hard to like overdo it on community. You're going to have a hard time getting like a stress reaction because you communitied too hard. So for a lot of people, you have this, like for really dedicated athletes, there's always going to be this need, like, I want to do more. I want to, I want to always do more. I want to be optimizing. So you can channel a lot of that energy and those impulses into connecting with the community and like taking care of yourself. And that for me is really, really helpful, like in my own training, where instead of like pushing hard, just like physically, mentally, emotionally, I can take that time, space, energy, and connect with people in my community. Mm-hmm. And like when I've like been injured, I've always had like people like Kylie and Drew to lean on, or like my own teammates on the team that TJ, Kylie, and I run for. And like having those people that some of them are people that I've like never even met in person, but I know I can text them when I need support. And I have like zero shame in reaching out to them and being like, hey man, like you've had this same weird pelvic injury. Like, what are your tips? You know, and
Yeah.
I think like getting to that place where you feel comfortable connecting with total strangers about what's going on in your pelvis is like kind of the ideal level of community for me. And like I think that that's just like like really, I was never like a team sport person. I was like not an athlete as a kid like at all, so I'm really embracing as an adult having people that I conceive of as my teammates, and I love cheering for them. You know, like we had a teammate running the Barkley marathons. Like, oh my god, like what an amazing opportunity to feel connected to an event and feel invested in this other person and in this event, and that makes you reinvest more in your training. So I think for me it's really trying to get to know the people on the team, and learning how to cheer for other people in a way that's really authentic for me, because like I would want people to cheer for me in that way. And I just think it like having that team dynamic, particularly during you know, the pandemic, like that's one of the reasons we started these calls, is because we wanted people, like, you know, people aren't going to group runs, you can't just like go hang out anymore. We wanted people to have those authentic connections and to like recognize Sarah Strong's face, so that when they see her on Strava, they're like, heck yeah, Sarah, you know, like I think once you like, you know, see what it looks like inside someone's living room, and then you see like the hard work they're putting in on Strava, you can really connect to them in an authentic way, even if you've like never actually met them. And like we had, you know, I think one of Kristen's athletes came out and crewed Sarah for her 100 miler. Like that to me is like the epitome of the microcosm experience.
Yeah, we've had a lot of that happen actually, which is just so cool.
Yeah, like we've had people who've never met like agree to pace each other at races, like crew each other. Like that to me is like, that's what team is about. And I feel like that's how you get the most out of life and training.
Totally. Drew, what do you think?
Okay, there we go. Okay, so piggybacked off y'all. Yes, community is obviously huge. I'm kind of new to microcosm, and so I think coming in, I was like, oh wow, like they're weekly calls, and we get to see people's faces. And I've been locked away and not able to like see people like I used to see, so that's really nice. And I think what I've been really impressed with as a newer community member is the community that exists outside the calls. Like the Strava community is huge for me. I'm like, and I'll admit I'm a Strava addict. It is what it is. Hi, my name's Drew. I love Strava. But like, I also think that the blogs and the podcasts that are put out there by TJ and Zoe is all new to me. I've never been much of a blog person. I've never been much of a podcast person, which makes me feel really old because that's like really popular these days. But like, but there's so many resources out there available that, I mean, it's mind boggling. Anything that you would want to know. And there's a ton of information on topics that you didn't know that you were interested in, or I didn't know that I was interested in, but it's all out there. And so just really knowing that there's just tons of resources outside of community as well to help you become a better, stronger person. I think that's really cool.
Awesome. Kylie, you had some thoughts on this too.
I guess the community aspect has already been mentioned a lot, but I think making sure that you're taking advantage of the opportunity that you have to connect with your coach as well, on a one-on-one basis. I mean, I think there's a lot of programs out there where you might not get to have that interaction and get to like build that relationship. And so I know I only have about 10 athletes, but all the athletes that I have, I really enjoy like getting that glimpse behind their running as to like what's going on in their life. Or I mean, I have some international athletes and I'm like, oh, how's the COVID situation over there? So it's just kind of nice to like have that relationship with your coach. And I think taking advantage of that on that personal level is kind of a nice added benefit of microcosm.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I really think that the athletes who provide, and it doesn't have to be every day, but a few times a week, provide a little more context to their entries in the log, something other than like run felt fine. Like cueing the coach in on like, you know, anything that's going on, like with work, life, you know, stresses. That's why that column is called work life stresses, because like all of those things are deeply connected and affect each other. And so like athletes who embrace that are willing to kind of put a little bit more of themselves out there, and knowing that it's a confidential and safe space where they can do that. They, at least for me, over many months and ideally, you know, years, I develop a much closer connection with those athletes, and I'm able to give them better training as a result of that. And I think if you're here just for the training stuff, don't, you know, underwrite how important it is to really connect with your coach. You know, I always am like, just enjoy to hear like what people are doing outside of running, even if it's just a sentence or two. If you have like a career breakthrough or a relationship breakthrough, or you're buying your first house, I don't know, whatever it is, those are just some examples. Or you're going to move across the country for X, Y, or Z. You know, there's a million things that you could write in there, but kind of to understand the person, you know, or to give them the best training, you really do need to understand the person. So when you get away from that, and I think every athlete has ebb and flow in their training. You know, I've been writing in my training log with my coach for like close to 4 years. And sure, there's been moments where like I've only written a few sentences, you know, during the week, and everything is fine. But, you know, leaning on that coach for just general support. We're not therapists or doctors or PTs. So, you know, you have to understand that we can only offer love and support, especially in tough times. And the onus is on you as an athlete to work through your challenges. And hopefully we can help provide the space for you to do that, and the support, the encouragement to go out and, you know, confront big challenges, but without letting your coach know about those things, or the good things too. The highs are really important. It's very hard for the coach to have a genuine relationship with somebody, and then it ends up being what we try to not make microcosm, which is just a coach and an email address, and here's a plan, good luck. You know, there's a lot of coaches who do that, and I'm not saying that that doesn't work for some people, but that's not our product. That's not our service. So if, you know, if you're an athlete, like, engage with your coach, try to, you know, keep them filled in on what's happening. That's how, you know, you end up getting a plan that is even better for you over time. Yeah, I think so. And then the community, obviously, you know, that's a big piece for us, as well as giving you guys more than just coach support, but support from other athletes who are, you know, involved in the journey too. And I think that's just so important.
Yeah, we're definitely looking to do more group runs once we're all vaccinated and things calm down. Like we did a little one in the Front Range, kind of right before things started to feel like it was kind of right on the border of like, is this okay? But we're going to do it when it's totally okay. And like that to me was just like everything that I was looking for in this community, because like we just hung out.
That was so fun.
IRL with people. And it was like, you know, it just feels like hanging out with your best friends. Like, you know, we talk to people every single day. It just feels so natural to like go on a run together. We want to do that in the Pacific Northwest. We want to do that in Arkansas. You know, that's like kind of our dreams, to just do group runs. We want to hug everyone.
Yeah,
I want to hug everyone in real life.
I think it makes a huge difference for the coach and the athlete, especially, you know, to have some face-to-face interactions. I know like we don't necessarily offer one-on-one Zoom calls every week at our price point. It's just not really feasible or possible with what we charge. And there's other coaching offerings out there. And so for some athletes that might make more sense. But for us, you know, having like the initial talk with you guys, having these talks with you guys, hopefully having more, you know, group runs in the future, And then, you know, from time to time, being able to check in with people when it makes most sense. I think that those kind of things really help to build the relationship even a step beyond sometimes just like the daily interaction, which is obviously the corner piece to all of this, is just having somebody give you daily support. You know, after each run, even if your run was like a laundry folding run, which as you get, you know, more involved in these processes and you're out there training thousands of days like we have, and a lot of runs just like, yeah, it's just a run, you know, I don't have a lot to say about it. You know, I just did my run. I stacked my little bricks and I'm going to move on to tomorrow.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, a lot of my runs with my coach are like that. And he's just like,
I feel like
great work.
the more
And
you advance in your training, it gets like, dude, when I first started training, every day was like an odyssey, right? Like I was like, oh my God, I did like 5 miles. It was incredible. Here's 600 words. Like I had a total epiphany. And then like the more you train, the more you're like, oh, it was just a run. It was fine.
Yeah. And I feel like that's like huge too.
That was
sometimes
kind of a breakthrough
when
every run, when I stopped putting like the pressure on every run to be like a foundational, like life altering experience for myself, then it started to be like a lot more relaxing and like, yeah. And I think it just takes time, you know?
Totally. Yeah. It takes time. It takes, you know, being confident with your coach that, you know, when you know, when something is big and you express that with your coach, that you kind of get some feedback that, you know, is actionable or that will help you move forward. And then to kind of get more perspective on the training and things like that. And I think sometimes as athletes to develop, you know, more runs are just routine, right? Like your workouts, just like, that's my workout, I'm going to execute that. You go out, you execute it, you go back to your training log, I executed it. Like felt good or whatever it is, you know? And then sometimes the training becomes just this automated process, but then life doesn't get any easier because you're always pushing in other aspects of your life. You know, you're I'll speak to you, but like you're working really hard to develop, you know, podcasting business. You're working really hard as a trail running coach, but also as a writer and editor for Trail Runner. And sometimes those things, even though that's not training and your coach doesn't like know all of the complex elements of what you're doing day to day, sometimes
I have the benefit of also being my coach's editor, so he gets to hear from me probably more than he wants.
Yeah, okay. But also, you know, I think let's look at this for other people then. When you have that situation where you're executing the training, sometimes what you really need most is a little general support in the other aspects of your life, some encouragement, maybe a tip or something to help kind of keep things balanced so you can continue to like execute on your training.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, more than feedback on my runs much lately, like my coach has been like, make sure that you're not working too hard. You know, like he's like, make sure that you're not striving, like just be okay, like strive for mediocrity in some things so that you can be really excellent in other things. Cause like, you can't just like go balls out 100% like all the time.
I would agree. Yeah. I think that I don't know, those perspectives sometimes are helpful from
you just need to have someone that like, particularly that you trust. I'm like, oh, well, you know, this guy's helped me get a lot faster. Presumably he's also not wrong about driving himself crazy at work.
But then you can take some of those experiences that you learn, you know, through training in that process, and they're very applicable to, you know, what you do in other aspects of your life.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're almost out of time. And it's so funny. I shot myself in the foot by saying we were going to get through all these questions.
Yeah.
All right. Who wants the final word, Kylie or Drew?
I can jump on it real quick, and I'll keep it brief in case Kylie does want to jump in and add something. But the question that is written on here is, what is a running question you are actively exploring, and what are you discovering about it? My deal that I'm actively exploring is something I feel several of you in Microcosm are as well. I'm officially an aging athlete. And so I am used to running 90, 100, 110 mile weeks and trying to do everything at like 7-minute pace or faster. And I just can't do it anymore. And so I've had to really begin begun changing the way I schedule my runs. I have to change the way I eat. I have to change the pace. I have to change everything. And so recently, I'm 35. I'm not 21 anymore, but I've recently had to just adjust everything. And so for me, a question I'm exploring is, how can I recover better to then run better? And so that's just kind of what I'm looking at. And as soon as I figure everything out, I will let everyone know.
Yeah.
Faster as a master, Drew. You're going to be freaking owning
You're
the
a beast.
masters category forever. You're like the most consistent runner I know.
I think it's really important, from season to season, athletes readdress what they think is easy. In your first year or two of really focusing in on training, your easy pace generally gets a lot faster. But the associated impacts of forces involved in that is that, like your body is going to break down. So athletes often start to, throw in more like really focused recovery, purely aerobic miles in their weeks and stuff like that. And maybe that would be helpful for you, Drew, because I know that speed isn't gone, but perhaps, some runs just need to be a lot slower than you're used to. And that way you can really feel good when you are, pushing the upper end of your aerobic kind of threshold on runs, which is like insane how fast you go and it's easy for you. And I wish I had that speed.
My God, I want him to become an ultra runner.
Yeah, you're ready. You're like
so
in
ready.
prime ultra years, Drew.
You put in years of marathon work, you have the speed, you have the endurance, you just need to like embrace wearing basketball shorts and shuffling in the woods. It's time.
No, I don't know. I'm going to be that ultra runner out in the woods wearing my 2-inch splits, thinking to myself, man, if I can run 20 miles at 5:50 pace like it's nothing, how far can I go if I run 8-minute pace? You never know.
Oh, really far.
Let's start a GoFundMe to get Drew to go to Javelina.
That would be sick.
You like heat, right?
Kylie, did you want the final word?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've spoken on this before, but I'm trying to actively focus on what I can control and not what I can't control. So in regards to injury recovery, so if anyone out there is struggling with an injury, really trying to focus on, if it's your nutrition or your PT exercises or doing cross training instead of running, actively trying to switch my mindset to, okay, like what can I actually do versus like focusing on, I can't run right now, and like getting a lot of anxiety about that. So I would encourage others working through injury to really try to embrace that.
That's awesome, Kylie. Yeah, I know you've mentioned this before, and this is going to be a reoccurring question every, at least once a month, probably for Coach's Corner, because I know at least for myself, sometimes what I'm focusing on changes, or what questions I'm exploring change. But with big picture stuff like injury and things like that, it's really normal for an athlete to take a little bit more time to kind of explore all that. And I know that it's not easy to find those answers. Sometimes, there aren't really the answers that you're exactly looking for, but it takes a long time to come back from some injuries more than others, and embracing what you can do and what you can't is vital. And I think that just using that as an opportunity to develop, other hobbies, other interests, to go all in on your business like you're doing, Kylie, I think that's also really amazing. Anyways, thank you guys. Thanks for joining us today. And we are off on Monday, no call. But we'll do another Coach's Corner next week.
Oh yeah, you're out of town.
Yep.
Yeah.
I hope you guys have a great weekend. Go do your runs, have fun.
Hugs. Can't wait to hug everyone in real life.
Have fun this weekend, TJ.
Thanks, Tom. Good to see you guys.